Hello and welcome to GC 365, day 85. This is pretty exciting. You are working your way right along. I'm Naudia Bosch. I am the Extended Hands Coordinator here at Gold Creek. And this is my daughter,
Danny
Bosch, and she is actually in Pastors in Training, which is really awesome. So she gets to do this stuff, get put on the spot, get called to do different lessons and things for little kids. So tell us, I want to know a little bit about Pastors in Training. What's that like for you?
Basically, Pastor Dan teaches us about things that we need to know to become a pastor and to be able to speak publicly without using a lot of filler words or just techniques that we can use.
And is he pretty soft on you guys? Like pretty easygoing? I mean, does he sugarcoat things for you guys?
No.
No. How would you describe his training?
Well, he gives you feedback really well, and he's not gonna, if you're really bad, he's gonna tell you.
He's gonna let you know. He's gonna give you some good critical or critiques, to get better. So awesome. So she gets to practice right here today for some of the stuff she does in Pastors in Training. So let's dig in. We're talking about Deuteronomy 5 and 6. And it's a lot about the 10 Commandments. Again, Moses is coming back and reminding them, after talking to the Lord, hey, remember those 10 Commandments? The Lord said, I pulled you out of Egypt. I saved you from slavery. I did all these amazing miracles for you. Listen to the 10 Commandments. Here they are. And there's something that stands out to me, a quote that says we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. They all knew the 10 Commandments. They all heard them. They've been passing them down for generations and generations. And yet, again, Moses brings them back to the 10 Commandments. So what do you think for you as a teenager, 14 here, what do you think the hardest of the commandments is to follow?
Murder.
Okay.
No. Honoring your father and mother, I think.
Okay. Why would you say that?
Because I don't want to listen to you very often.
What do you think that means, honoring your mother and father?
I mean, they do a lot of stuff for you. So just giving them credit for that and being respectful towards them and not talking back, just holding your tongue.
Yeah. I think that's hard for any kid. Any teen, even parents, when we don't agree with our parents, with the way we're parenting, and if they have something that's not in line with what we think, I think that's something that we don't get over that all the time, right? We always struggle with that in some ways. So I think that's probably true for a lot of people. What about most teens? Do you think that's what most teens struggle with in the 10 Commandments?
Yeah, I mean, everybody struggles with different things, so I really can't speak for everybody.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I think for me, I was just rereading that, the one about not testifying falsely about your neighbor, and basically speaking poorly about your neighbors, gossiping about your neighbors, lying about your neighbors. And when we think of neighbors, we're not just thinking of the people who live next door to us. We're thinking about our fellow churchgoers, what were you saying? Peers. Yeah. The people that we're in community with, and holding our tongue when they do something that annoys us, irritates us, isn't in line with our way of thinking, and we don't think it's right. Like, it's super easy just to say those things out loud to people that you trust.
I mean, you don't even mean it half the time either. It's just...
Yeah, it slips out sometimes. And so I think that for me, that's something I'm constantly, a couple years ago, actually, when I came to the new high school that I'm at, that was one of my goals, is like to be professional, to be the example, to show that I don't get sucked up in those conversations. And it's not easy. I'm not saying it never happens, but it's definitely something I think that a lot of people struggle with. So again, they were reminded that they remembered they were spared by God, like all the people. And they're like, yes, we're going to do it. We're going to follow the 10 Commandments. And, then it brings us into the Deuteronomy 6, where it talks about the commitment. So love your God with all your heart, soul, your strength, commit to the 10 Commandments, and all will be well. You're on board to go to the kingdom of heaven. And Moses is saying, reminding them that from every single generation, you need to tell this to your kids. You need to put it on your walls, write it on your forehead, he says, put it on your wrist, do all these things. And yet, I don't know, in our house, do we have the 10 Commandments up?
Not all the time, not most of the time, or like at all.
Yeah, no, we don't have them up. And so when I read this, I was sort of like, oh man, we know how important the 10 Commandments are. We know they're the basis of our faith, and yet we don't even have them in our house. So we need to be reminded, we know they're so important. It's like the root of our faith is in the 10 Commandments. And the Israelites aren't alone needing to be reminded over and over. 2,000 plus years later, we're still sitting here going, oh, yeah, those commandments. Honor thy father and mother. Don't talk poorly about your neighbors. Those are really important. So important that he's saying, put it on your forehead, say it day and night. Don't forget it. Put it into your heart. So I think for me, taking that out of there, like we need to really pay more attention to the actual words of the 10 Commandments. Yeah, I think that's. So then we get into the New Testament. It's always a little bit, I don't know, easier. Is it easier to read the New Testament?
Yeah, I think so. I think that it's not that oh my gosh. The Bible is relevant in your life always, but I think that the New Testament is easier to comprehend and then like put into action.
Like relatable. You can kind of relate to. That's kind of how I think of it too. So we talk in Luke 7:11 through 35 about the widow's only son who died, which is pretty sad. Jesus, it says his heart overflowed with compassion and he saw the widow. Yeah. I had some thoughts on this. Do you want to share yours or what do you think?
You can go first.
Okay. I was thinking, Jesus sees the widow by herself alone, and he has this great compassion for the widow that she lost her son. And I got to thinking, like, this kind of reminds me of Jesus being God and Jesus as a human. So he sees the mother sacrifice, she's sad, the son is dead, and he wants to give her happiness and bring the son back to life, like almost like he's preparing us again, because Jesus does such a great job of
foreshadowing.
Yes, that the son dies and he's going to die this earthly death, but Jesus gives her light and hope in the son's resurrection, just like Jesus is, it's going to happen with Jesus. And I don't know if that's what was intended, but that's what it brought to light for me. Like he's telling this story and he sees the pain and the joy of the death and the resurrection. And he wants others to see that as well.
Yeah. So after that, he touched the casket, I think, and he just said, like, get up and walk, or just get up, and the man or the boy, whatever, he sat up and he started talking, I read, and I think that the widow was probably so happy because that's like the only person that she has in her life right now. It's her only son, she's a widow, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she experienced such joy in him giving her that gift. Like when Jesus is going to be resurrected, this joy that we have life eternal. I think we can you, I don't know, any mom, parent out there could probably imagine, what if you thought your child had died and then, whoa, they came back to life and they're there with you, and the joy that must have caused her, just like the joy in everyone seeing Jesus, I think, and knowing we have eternal life. So then, they kind of move into John the Baptist, and he's hearing of Jesus and all the miracles. And yet you brought up a good point that.
Yeah, so he did that. And then after he was kind of walking away, and John the Baptist sent his disciples, and they asked him, are you the Messiah that we've been waiting for? And I thought that this was interesting because John the Baptist, like, they were cousins. So John the Baptist knew about Jesus already. And so why would he send other people? Like, he could have just told them himself, but he decided to let them figure it out for themselves.
And that's like what Jesus does throughout the whole New Testament. He's asking questions of answers he already knows. And I didn't even think about that when you were talking about that earlier, that John the Baptist is like, hello, I kind of know Jesus. I kind of related to him. And he wants his disciples to see for themselves, because oftentimes when I tell you something, right? Oh, don't do that. That's a mistake, or this or that. What typically has to happen? Like when your parent tells you not to do something, what do you want to do?
Oh, you want to do it.
And you got to learn it for yourself, right? So that's kind of how John the Baptist and I think Jesus used their teachings. You need to learn it for yourself and know it in your heart, because if it's not solidified in your heart, if you just hear these things over the years, just like the 10 Commandments, you just hear them and you don't experience them and put them into your heart and your faith and your practice, they're just going to be words. It's just going to be stories. So I think that that way of teaching is really powerful. But then Jesus goes on to talk about how great John is, like the greatest. You know, he is amazing. He's devoted his life to preaching and spreading the word and baptizing others. And even as great as he was, Jesus said, even the least of these will be greater in the kingdom of heaven, which, you know, that is just a powerful statement.
I mean, he got to baptize Jesus, but he's saying here that the people who put their small amount of faith into me, they're going to be higher than the people who have more money, but put less faith and trust into me.
Yeah. It's not your works. It's not your money. It's not any of those things. It reminds me of the mustard seed. You could have the faith of a mustard seed can move the mountains. And even the tax collectors, after Jesus said that about John being so great, they're like, oh, okay, if you think John's great, we think John's great. He baptized us. This must be a pretty amazing guy. And they were, believing what God had offered to them, but not the darn Pharisees.
They don't like him very much, or like anybody.
They are not on board. So they complain. They don't believe that he's the Messiah, things like that. They're very faithful in a sense, but they don't really believe in what Jesus is.
They're more faithful according to the laws and what they have heard. I feel like it's like passed down, like laws,
traditions, and law. Yeah. Like, we can't do it another way. This is what we know. Yeah. It's always been done this way, so we got to do it. Keep doing it this way. But Jesus is saying, those darn Pharisees, they complain. We give them a song and they don't dance. Then we give them a funeral song and they don't weep. And whatever we do, they're not going to go for it. Then they talk about John the Baptist. Who are you following? He's going out to the woods. He's not drinking the wine. He's eating the crickets and he's doing all the things, but you think he's possessed by a demon. And then they say, well, Jesus is feasting and
socializing.
So he must be a drunkard. Like, they won't believe everything. There's a reason not to believe. And sometimes with people, as strong as your faith can be and your example can be, and you're trying to be that person, they still criticize you and they don't believe. They're not going to show they're not going to follow. And there's really nothing we can do about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you have to just be the example and keep on doing your best, and they have to come to their own understanding. So finally, Psalms and Proverbs. I mean, it's really talking about praise Jesus, love him, do all the good things. God's our judge.
Yeah, like God, he's the only one who he says he is the only one who can judge us. So if other people are judging you, don't let that influence who you are. And if you're judging other people, that's not your place. That's God's place.
Yep. Use his seed, plant it, grow the tree of life, and spread God's word. And that's what we're called to do. So that's a wrap for us. We hope you guys enjoyed this and are enjoying following along, and keep going. And we'll see you next time.